Eh, Rico feels like her head hurts now. Use smaller words, Rico said, seeming to be somewhat distraught with the explanation of how magic works. Okay, that I kind of expected, Salas said as he turned around for a moment to face Rico and Taleon. But you better have understood that. I understand she's going to have a learning curve when it comes to magic. But your education should be sufficient to understand. Rico will just have to catch up. But then again, you're probably going to be catching up to Rico when it comes to knowledge of how to use demonic energy, since currently you don't know how to use it at all, which is the problem that we're going to fix first and foremost. What? I thought you were going to teach me about magic. Yes, you're going to learn about magic, but guess what, Taleon? Salas said, seeming a bit annoyed with Taleon's displeasure with not being trained first in magic. Look, Taleon, in order to use magic, you have to be able to use demonic energy. You can't use one without the other. Using magic isn't like your flame breath. It's not something that's naturally going to just pop out. Even if I were to try to teach you how to concentrate and run through the different processes to create a magic spell, you still wouldn't be able to cast one. You barely get a fizzle, because you have absolutely no control over your demonic energy. So, first things first, that's what you have to learn. Even training in combat is going to require you to utilize demonic energy. So, I'm going to need you to give me a stiff upper lip and bear with it. We're going to have to take this slow. I'm not chancing the fast way round. Wait a second, there's a fast way? Taleon replied, seeming a bit hopeful for a moment. Oh yeah, there's a fast way. I'm just not taking it. Trust me, kid, I've seen you have a little freak-out session. Or did you forget that all of these injuries are from you? He said, pointing at the torn clothing and blood dried into the bandages around his arm. Yes, Taleon, there is a fast way, but utilizing that faster way also puts your demonic energy on full release, meaning you won't be able to stop it from flowing out. It'll just pour out at maximum volume. And knowing the last time you reacted to a serious situation, it went very poorly for me, no fast way for you. Not taking the chance of another incident. Slow and steady wins the race with you. I'd rather not have to fight you again. So, we're going to begin some basic exercises for getting in contact with your demonic energy, pulling it to the surface, and then focusing that demonic energy. Okay, well, how long will that take? Taleon asked. Well, hopefully you'll have it in hand by the end of the day. But it could take a few days if if you take after your father. He has shabby control over his demonic energy. The level of control that any particular person has over their demonic energy can vary. Your mother has excellent control over her demonic energy. Your father has almost none over his. He just has such a resoundingly high amount that his low control doesn't really matter. Your father isn't, tactful, as it might be called. Other demons might rely on finesse during a fight, being able to take measured action and respond with precision rather than all-out force. But your father doesn't need to do any of that. He is 100% pure hell dragon. He has an overabundance of magical energy and demonic energy. He doesn't rely on having to have precise control over it. Rather, he's able to summon it in such astounding amounts and at such an astounding rate of speed that there are very few that can bother thinking that they have a chance to fight against it. He overwhelms people with sheer force, and he is exceptionally good at it. In combat, your father will apply so much pressure that it doesn't matter how much skill or tact that you use. For example, with my little confrontation with you, I stuck to level 2 in order to make sure I didn't hurt you. Do you know what happened when I tried to use level 2 against your father? He burnt an entire quarter-mile of land to ashes in one go. He torched my entire cloak. I had to burn it all just not to get fried. Your father doesn't need pinpoint accuracy. He has power that's so overwhelming that even skill, pinpoint accuracy, and precision tend to pale in comparison to his outright power. It's terrifying, truly it is. Ugh. Seriously, I had to go all the way up to level 6 just to compete with him. And even then, it was close. Luckily, a friend intervened in the fight before one of us killed the other. But I'm gonna be honest. I don't know which one of us would have actually won that fight. I was literally on the edge, and it didn't seem like he was doing much better. To be honest with you, I don't know which one of us is the strongest, myself or your father. But my tacks aren't the same as his. And I'm not going to teach you to follow the leader and just do what your father does. If I can teach you to use skill and precision, I'm going to. Even if you're capable of all-out force. I'd prefer you to have some skill handy. Well, I suppose that's enough. Come on, we have things to do, Silas said as he continued walking. After hearing that story, Taleon couldn't help but think of his father. Was he really as powerful as Silas said he was? And Silas mentioned a cloak of dreams? What was that? And what was level 2 and level 6? He has levels? Why? Taleon thought to himself. What do the levels do? Taleon shook his head for a moment, as these distracting thoughts weren't really being helpful. Eventually, they finally made it to the clearing. Taleon, looking out at the wake of destruction left, still unsure of how he could have been able to do something like that. Silas led them to a central portion of the clearing before stopping and turning around to face them. Okay, so, Lesson 1. Summoning your demonic energy. This is the very basic, introductory into control. Most people find it helps if they visualize. Once you're actually familiar with getting in contact with your demonic energy and pulling it out, the more you do it, it'll start to become second nature, and you won't need the visualization anymore. You'll simply be able to feel it. Okay, Taleon said. But why can't I feel it already? I mean, if I have it, why can't I feel it? Well, that's simple, kid, because you have so much of it. In terms of sensing demonic energy, it's crippling for you. If you grew up with your parents, it probably wouldn't have been an issue. You would have been surrounded by other demons, high-level ones. Naturally, your senses would have picked up on their demonic energy, as they, like you, have massive outputs. So massive that they dwarf everyone around them. It's possible, of course, to keep it hidden, but for those who possess power like yours, it's actually more taxing to do that. So high-level demons tend not to. Okay, Taleon replied. But then, why can't I sense your demonic energy? I mean, you're strong, right? Yeah, I'm strong, kid, but I'm actually the opposite of your father. Unlike your father, who produces, well, let's just say it, an absolutely absurd amount of demonic energy, the same as your mother, I produce, well, probably about a quarter the amount that your father does per day, which is still a sizable portion. Much more than the average demon, but still a long shot from your father's. So unlike your father, who can afford for that energy to float away on the breeze every day, like you, I can't afford that. So I use a technique that allows me to basically put a lock on my demonic energy, seal it inside of me, and keep it contained. The amount of demonic energy that I'm able to contain this way is based on my physical status and the hold area for my prism. Your prism? Okay, you're gonna need to explain that, Taleon asked. Ugh, fine. Once again, you're slowing us down, kid. But for the sake of argument, I'll explain. My prism is, well, you remember your grandmother's purse, right? The way it holds far more than it looks like it can hold. That's because it's magic. It's a tiny little pocket dimension contained in a purse, with much more space inside of it. Well, one of the techniques that I developed in order to bypass the regular limitations of a low-level demon is a technique that I know as Prism. This allows me to create essentially something much like that purse, only inside of my soul. It's a pocket dimension where I can store away my demonic energy. Basically, you place the prism within inside yourself, and then the longer you hold the prism, the more space that gains inside of it. It basically doubles in size every decade or so, and that's without any intervention from me. I can force it to grow, if I choose. It's just very strenuous to do so. And I also have to worry about the limitations of my own body and soul, because what holds the prism in place is actually my spirit, my soul, kid. Because demons use demonic energy and not spiritual energy, I'm able to utilize the energy of my soul as a containment field that keeps the prism in place and the energy within it in check. However, the containment effect is only as strong as the spirit that holds it. So there's a limit on how big it can get before I have to stop its progression. Actually, mine's at its limit. I can't actually make it any bigger. In other words, I'm as strong as I'm ever going to be, because my soul simply can't handle allowing the prism to expand anymore. If I did, then my soul would be unable to contain it, and all of that energy would just burst out. It wouldn't be pretty. Now that you've annoyed me with having to answer your question again, on to training. It's time for you two to start practicing summoning your demonic energy. This is going to be a very simple process, kid. Let's try not to screw it up.